let's jump into things. Where are we at? 10:57 a.m. on the 6th of March. So look, we'll sort of start off with DXI because this thing is absolutely just getting pulverized at the moment. And look, it was we got the gap. I mean, everybody knows where we were going this week, and that we had that gap early, and this was that first sort of price target. I'm like, yeah, here we go. We're going to come back and undo this little pump into the end of the week where we had Zelensky and Trump, excuse me, Oval Office debacle. Anyway, that got undone, but that looks just miles away now, doesn't it? I really thought it would have had a little bit more of a punch up there, but look, DXY, US dollar selling off is what we have been sort of thinking and working towards for a theme because that's what Trump wants. And let's be honest in that, regardless of whether you like him or not, he's making things happen. And if he wants something, he's going to sort of make he's got to pull the right levers, or he's got the right team to pull the right levers to make these things happen. So it's pretty important to sort of like listen to what he's got to say, because there's a good chance that's going to come to fruition, particularly in this early stage. So we had that big speech yesterday, and God, that went on like it was a I don't know hour and a half or something at least. Actually, I know it was longer than an hour and a half because it took an hour and a half before he mentioned Ukraine. But I don't know, like he doesn't look like he's reading off a teleprompter or anything like this, but he just goes on, and it's like, his memory, and he's just like, oh, let's thank this person here, and let's remember this person here. That was just a little heartfelt part of it all and that, but he's right on top of absolutely everything. And so that's the thing, if he wants something to happen, and they want lower rates, they want a weaker US dollar, it's going to happen, and we're starting to see this happen at the moment. This like US dollar is getting absolutely crushed at the moment. So look, I said the other week that basically I thought the US dollar was mainly being held up on tariffs, and not economic data. And economic data we had a little bit out overnight, which I'll get to in 2 seconds and that, but the tariff thing seems to be abating a little bit as well, and we're seeing it bang sell off. And with the weak US data as well, it's no sort of shocker that we see this big, massive sell down. Look, 101 is my major sort of target, all the way down over here. Um, I honestly didn't think this thing was going to drop so quick. I mean, look, if we look at this just on a weekly point to now, down 3% on the week. That's huge. That is a big commitment by the market to get rid of the US dollar. And we're seeing, like, at the same time, Euro, obviously making up a large part of DXY, really sort of punch up to the top side. That's up like 300 points or something as well. Like, it's really sort of kicking along at the moment. So, got to sort of think like, I mean, obviously at some point here was having a nice, is trying to form a bit of a channel, but this is where we were at yesterday, and I said, look, a little rally up here, and then boom, this was the idea. There was the continuation coming down. I didn't even get enough of a push up to test the underside of this previous little support that had sort of been building through there. And obviously, bang, sold down into, and again, just closing right on the lows. So generally, sort of when you're seeing this, it's obviously starting to sort of like filter out a little bit through this end here, but I don't think this is a bottom. Again, remember, the bottoms are just going to be, it's either going to be a series of shorter candles, um, or it's going to be sort of like probably a bit some sort of rounded thing. Any sort of like sharp push up, like this kind of move here, is just most likely going to be sold into. Well, I look at, honestly, I think any move is going to be sold into, but the point is, it's, you know what I mean, it's a sharper move up. This means that it's like sort of shorts covering and then bang, continuation expected. I don't think we're going to get a straight V shape like this. Unless something like massively fundamental shifts, there's no real reason for it to just spin on a dime and move like that. So, if we get some sort of short covering, that'll get us a move up till people go, yep, okay, let's start selling it again. So if you jump back down on the lower time frame again, we can see there was a couple of bits of data out overnight. Where were we? I think it was well, it was ADP, which was up over this period here. Prior to this, trying to make a little base, and then bang, ADP got crushed as well. So I'll refresh this one here. So ADP, jobs in the sort of added in the private sector. Where are we here? So 186, what's that revised from actually? 183, 186, whatever, revision, not much at all. They were expecting a slowdown and it got absolutely walloped. So, 77,000 K, that is, a big miss to the downside. Just while we're on the news here, we did actually have ISM data out, and so this came out a little bit positive, as you can see. But if you look at the price action around, and this is the point, you've got to be able to blend the two parts together, and sort of say, well, here we go. So ADP was negative, down, and market moved down. ISM, which is this candle just here, 2 o'clock, came in positive, market moved it up, but what did they do? They sold into it. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to get some strong data and they're going to go, hold on, wait, let's change. And this is the term, like I like making up these sort of things, but whatever. The term landscape. If it changes the landscape, then, if people was to say, hold on, wait, you know what, this data was so important and, it's something that really changes the landscape, the outlook, how we're sort of valuing things at this point, they would have used that as an excuse to keep on buying it. Here's a bottom. Hold on, wait. Maybe we've got this thing wrong. Let's buy it and let's move it back up. But they didn't. They just went, no, that's cool. Yeah, sweet. Bang. Sell into it. Boof. And they hammered it down again. So, again, it's sort of like, you had weak data, they sold into it. Positive data, they sold into it. Well, what's the underlying theme there? The underlying theme is bang, they won out. And it's even with stronger ISM data, it could only manage its little oof off the lows before sellers just said, yep, that's enough for me. Bang, I'm selling it down. So why would you sell something just here? You'd sell it because you think it's going to come down over here. And obviously, if you can sell it here, it's better than selling it here. And even if you want to buy it back, you're better to buy it back from here. So I don't think that this is done yet. I don't think we've found a bottom or anything like this um, with this move. So just let me manage a position here. So yeah, it's interesting how bad it is getting smacked at the moment. Of course, we got NFP at the end of the week. ADP. I've heard of going back a bit, people sort of saying, oh, it's a bit of a precursor for that. But given enough times of looking at these two numbers side by side and watching the sort of them play out, I don't think it's really a good gauge of what's to come. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're on par, sometimes they're polar opposite. There's not enough of a correlation between the two, I think, to really give us a great, accurate sort of idea of what NFP is going to be based off what ADP is going to be. But expectations are, where we at? 143. Oh, it's actually up. I thought the expectation would go down. So they're expecting a little bit of a jump up in it all. And how that sort of goes compared to previous weeks. Can't scroll this anymore. Oh, blue was the actual there. So forecast. So yeah, look, I mean, it's still sort of holding flat, actually. Quite interesting. Sort of with that, for some reason, I just thought it was a massive drop off here. We did have obviously these spikes up around sort of like 200 plus, three revised up over 300, but then crushed back down and back down to reality. I've often said this that sort of these kind of numbers, depending what's happening at the time, always seem a little bit iffy. And if you remember last year, we actually had that period where they sort of like consolidated all the sort of the miss in the numbers, and it was like, oh, whoops, we accidentally overstated 800,000 jobs or something over the course of the year. So let's just wipe all that off now and yeah, go from here. So yeah, you take this stuff kind of with a grain of salt, but I mean, as I say, you got to trade the numbers that are presented to you, whether they're real or not. The market will react off them. Anyway, so short term, let's mark this up a little bit because we obviously haven't got really much down at these levels in terms of short term. I think there's some like little levels you can sort of work off. Look, if you do happen to get some sort of, as I said, any sort of move up here, I would say is just going to be sold into. So, your top side would be up over here and then sort of back down. I don't see it necessarily going much higher at this point, but, it has been incredibly bashed. So, even if this were to say be the lows here and you looked at just this move through here, You could start to sort of go, there's your little fib levels. Even if it sort of pushed through and came up over to this level over here, that's still your 23% retracement up around these sort of levels. Given this is the idea that this is actually the bottom, we don't gap down on open or anything like this. But I don't think this is going to be quite the bottom yet. I think if we see something to sort of turn around, it'll be something like this. So it'll sort of come down, maybe boom, boom, sideways, sideways, build a range, and then sort of have a sort of solid line for a breakout. So this would be sort of like, sort of coming back up here, and then back down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then getting some sort of rounded bottom to get a bit more of a push back up off here. We are actually almost sort of cutting right down to that next big support area. And this area here is basically, as you can see, the election gap. So this has really undone a lot of this move now, because this was just a complete runaway thing. And this is what I say, gaps do like to close. So we left one at the start of this week. So that's definitely something to sort of keep an eye on for future sort of little rally points. But for the time being, I think we're still sort of just going to be wallowing down the bottom over here just for the time being, till at least we get NFP and see if that gives us any sort of direction. All right, so certainly, look, if we break lower, 103.60, 103.60s, I would say is probably your downside targets. Any sort of move up, 104.80s or 105.13, but I don't imagine to be going past this 23% till we have something sort of fundamentally that shifts that actually warrants price to move back up past there, other than just sort of people sort of like short covering and then maybe squeezing some shorts. Flip across, got Aussie, and Aussie cruising up through here. So just bear with us one sec. So big bounce back from Aussie as we saw coming through here. Like that's what I was kind of saying. Oh, maybe this is a bit of a double bottom yesterday. Bit of a wonky sort of move through it all. Came up through here, but 80 was really the level that we were looking for that break yesterday. That's what we got a big push through. We had this falling resistance. It actually sort of held, that one last time pretty much to the point. So set up up here, up here, up here. Well, we've already got the arrow down there, and obviously sort of pushed through. So it was a big push off the lows, already sort of 1.3%. But as you can see, came up here, retested this other zone where we knew sellers would be hanging around this area, and that we've seen it previously. Here's one more sec. All right, and back. Yeah, so we saw it break through this sort of falling resistance here. Generally, I'm not a big fan of these ones that sort of like haven't been touched for ages, like because obviously it pulled away from it a little bit on this line here where the sellers came through. This point back here was actually where we had, geez, I had it a second ago. What was that? That was CPI. Just was last week or something. And obviously we thought we'd get the pop and then bang, be sold into. Came in same as last month, under expectations, didn't even get the pop, but it was sold into. So not too bad there. Anyway, where we're at now, back above this zone, this 63.20 area, excuse me, previous resistance, a little bit of a chop through here, active support, support, break, resistance. It's an area the market's looking at. We can see this. It's shown up a number of times here. Bang, 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 and bang. So look, it's gone through. It's come back here. It's done a little bit of a test here. As to whether this pops through and keeps going right now, as I said, look, I think sort of DXY does have more downside. So I do think Aussie has more upside. It's just a matter of whether we get a little bit of sort of profit taking, short covering, these kind of bits and pieces, sort of in the interim. So meaning sort of like if we do get something like that, then we look for a little bit of a pullback and then we look to reload a little bit lower and then sort of look for a leg higher. But I do think this is moving a bit higher. We can start to look at the previous levels and drag these across and say, okay, where could our next targets be? So we've got a little bit of a range. Whoops. A little bit of a top just over here. Whatever. So there's obviously a little bit of a range on its way down here. So it would make sense that probably on a breakthrough of 43, you're looking up around 53, but I would say you start to run into a little bit of profit taking around this area. You break through here, then we start to look at this other sort of level that we've got marked out, sort of going way back to December. So way back to December. I was trying to work out what year it was. Of course, we're on the 1 hour, so it's just 24. So on the way down, so that was obviously a bit of a level as well. So look, there's a little bit of work to be done. There's definitely sort of little areas where we could use as price targets through here. Major breaks, obviously, when we sort of go through sort of 64, 64.20. So, still 90 points off, and it's been a very steep sort of rise so far. So we can sort of say, look, where might it sort of come back to? So just let's update this. So this is our little move so far. So should we sort of come back, I'd say around 63, 63.05. This would be an interesting area to sort of see if we could sort of get long from a little bit of a better area down here. It just feels a little bit sharp, this move, to be sustainable. As you can see, if we get, let's get this out, whoops. Just another little point, we could see that obviously the market tried to hold it here, pop through, now it's using it as support, see if we can sort of continue here. But I think sort of at some point we're going to see a little bit of a cooling off, whether this shoots up first and then sort of comes back down to these other areas over here. I think if this sort of fails to put in a new high early in this session here, we do have a bit of data coming out in 10 minutes, nothing major. But if we do fail to put in a high just here, I'll probably be looking at 63, 63.05 as a potential area to sort of get a little bit of a better entry to potentially get another leg to then sort of move up and sort of see if you can get a bit of a triangle for a break high here. But yeah, I think it feels a little bit sort of steep just for the time being. So, I'm not sort of jumping in guns blazing with things at this point. I mean, this is the 1 hour, RSI is tipping over. It's really just consolidating the highs. 4 hour, yeah, 4 hours, it's overbought. It's definitely up there for it all. But again, you want to see these things sort of continue. But I wouldn't be surprised if 63.52, this sort of wick highs, provide a little bit of a bit of a roof up here, and then we start to maybe sort of consolidate between say 50s and 20. So yeah, if you fail to put in a new high now, look at sort of around sort of 60. I'm looking around 63. If we do put in a little high and sort of reject from that 63, I'll probably still just look to sort of play this little range through here, with the idea that we might sort of just be sort of consolidating and chopping like we had similar to this period over here. Something to this sort of effect. Like, I don't think this is necessarily just going to get boom and sort of come back down like this, but I do think, it needs to take a bit of a breather through this move. This is a very big sort of push up for Aussie through this area here. We'll see how this one sort of plays out. But yeah, I think it's definitely still got a little bit of upside. And same sort of thing with these little sort of consolidation periods. It favors the direction that it comes into the consolidation. So we aren't consolidated yet. At least, on the 1 hour we are, but not on the 4 hour. But should this end up being a sort of consolidation period through here, I think that's just a stalling for then a move up, and then we can start to look for the higher levels. Honestly, if it's going to go to the higher levels, a bit of a consolidation is probably better. Swap some hands, get some fresh money in, and then sort of use that to then sort of break out to the top side there. All right, we got silver. So silver screaming up towards that price target. So this was the one that we called out yesterday, that little inverted head and shoulders. We got a very nice little sort of bottom line over here. So where we could say, look, this is going to fail if it came down under the shoulder here. Obviously, we got the breakthrough here. So this was where we were yesterday. That little sort of break, back test, and then it grind. A little bit of a shake. I think this is around Euro session, maybe coming in towards the start of US. They obviously tried to shake it down and then bang, sort of use that as a little bit of a reload, like a shotgun, like a chich, bang, and sort of shot up to the top side here. So look, I still think we could sort of go to this price target. I think that's a reasonable sort of level. Seeing it sort of like maybe a very, very tiny little zone through here as to sort of why it stopped where it did. I'm not, you know what I mean? I don't think this is anything super significant. It's just a little bit of something that matches up. fill the bodies here. That's where the wicks came to on the way down. And, so these people are like, yep, they're cool, give it a shot there. So I do think with this potentially have a little bit of a cooling, and then sort of reload and then back up to that price target. But I'm looking pretty confident that this is a sort of inverted head and shoulders with a measured move price target, which puts us just a little bit higher. Where we get to? We got to 71, moving up towards 85. So you can't always sort of say, look, if it doesn't hit it to the cent and that it's invalidated or anything like this, because all these things aren't exact science. But I would say that that's definitely got to get a little bit of a touch up. So if we get any sort of pullbacks, maybe around the 40s, probably this sort of 30 to 40 area, I wouldn't mind sort of having a bit of a buy for a reload to do something to this effect. Flying along, so Dante fly, Aussie. We've gone through gold. No, I haven't gone through gold. Gold just cruising up here, and so as you can see here, gold sort of consolidating this period here as well. It does bode well for a break higher, because remember, consolidation periods. Nothing's 100% every time, but favors the direction that it comes into the consolidation. So moving up, consolidating, favors the idea of a breaking higher. So gold's a bit of a tough one at the moment because obviously we had our big high, multiple all-time highs, and then we had quite a sharp little sort of pullback. But this is where you can make, I'm trying to think of a more appropriate word than insane money, but that's what it is. The break up through here, we've been going up. Then when we called this short through here, this is trading long all year up to this point here. Knowing when to swap and, okay, let's hammer these shorts. I hammered the shorts down through this area, and then just all this week being long and buying up through this sort of push up through here. I did actually get rid of my last ones at 29 last night, and as you can see, came right up to 29.80, so something, or 29, 28, sort of 29.30. Jeez, bit of a sort of tongue twister to get those numbers. But the point is, saw that little spike last night, and if you know what I do, I sell pops and that kind of stuff as well. So I did quite well through here. I was holding sort of a fairly chunky sort of position. Did have a little bit of a shakedown. I didn't sort of make use of this. I did think about it down here. I'm like, oh, okay, see, but no, I could have added on this little drop down here, but for me it was a little bit risky, and I was just like, no, like I don't want to sort of put myself too much out there. So anyway, so where we're at the moment, we're in this major leg to sort of test. So we got leg one, resistance. Leg two, we got sort of support. This is the big one. So this one is the one that's going to determine, are we going to get double top, lower high, higher high? As I said, if you look at the sort of idea of this move as a singular, it's moved up, consolidated, it does favor a continuation, which means overall we're looking, it's favoring the idea of at least a double top, meaning that sort of like, 29.50s is probably your target to go for. And that's sort of like, should we break out to the top side? So it's pretty clear with this one here. I would say sort of maybe sort of a close above 24. You could drag this down a little bit because it's obviously tried to wick out the top over here. But look, a close above, 24.25 on a 4 hour to me is going to signal that we're going up to sort of 29.50. Based on the idea of up consolidation, breakout, that's the next obvious area because we've seen the sellers obviously come in hard here, so most likely they're going to come in hard here as well. So that's the bullish sort of case with it all. Now, the bearish sort of case with this is the idea that potentially this is just a retest of sort of break levels where we saw it on the way down, and that this rolls over and breaks out the bottom side. If this breaks out the bottom side, if we get a close underneath 2900, 28.97, sort of outside this box, if we break below 28.94, if we get a close down here and we see a move like this, this could have larger sort of ramifications because in this sort of scenario, you've got resistance, pull back, support, buyers second go, they weren't able to get up to the previous highs. Sellers have gone, look, we sold it here, I'm going to sell it here. That's potentially your move then. If we're unable to get through this area, if this pump here fails and comes out the bottom of sort of the 90s, 2890s, you could be looking at a lower high and a little bit of a deeper sort of correction. And then you'd be looking at something like this. So that's your bearish case scenario. Your bullish is if this pushes out to the top side. Push out to the top side, we know where the target is. Break out the bottom side, we kind of know where the target is as well. It's going to be coming back down towards 2850, 2840, these kind of areas over here. I'm in the favor of this breaking out and pushing to the top side, but you need to consider both sides of the coin. And that's how it's playing out at the moment. But with US dollar selling off, weak economic data, that kind of favors more this move here to be breaking out to the top side. All right, so let's clear this one up. All right, and just got that data coming out, so I'll be back in 2 secs. All right, so just flip across to the news here quickly, because we just had a bit of data out here. So a bit of a mixed bag for Aussie. Look, this is building approvals month on month. Look, neither of these are big sort of market moving. Oh my God, wow. As I say, change the landscape kind of sort of data, but they're little pieces of the puzzle you put in to sort of see the sort of health of the economy. And this is a big beat. Building approvals month on month, 6.3%. Even sort of last one revised up 1%, like from 0.7 to 1.7, expecting a slowdown, and it's actually gone through the roof. So interesting sort of thing about this at the moment is because like I think the sort of like a lot, at least in Victoria, they're really sort of starting to sort of go, hey, look, you know what? I think that we almost sort of, I don't know if it's gone ahead or if they were floating the idea that if local councils don't do enough approvals, then they were going to lose their powers to be able to give approvals and it was going to be taken over by the state or something like this. People are obviously going, okay, let's do it. Crunch, crunch, crunch. That is a massive jump up. So hopefully it helps with the housing and all this kind of stuff with it all. But yeah, we'll sort of see how it goes. Again, it's not a massive market moving bit of data, and there's a little bit of a reason behind it, other than sort of like, you know what, everything's super prosperous. I think they're just more like the housing crisis is a little bit of a shit state, and so they're just trying to sort of push that stuff forward to keep to appease the higher ups. Um, One that probably I would have thought maybe would move the market a little bit more, but it's in that grey area, is the trades balance. So trades balance here, it actually got revised down. So that was 509 down to 4.92 billion. Expected a tick up. We got the tick up, but not quite as high as expected. So as I said, with this, it falls into that one of those sort of grey areas where it's beaten the previous. So yes, that's a positive, but it hasn't come in as much as expected. So that's kind of can be seen as a negative. Though in this sort of instance, I don't think that, the trades, I don't think there was massive positions being taken with the Aussie based on the outcome of the trade balance data. So again, it's a piece of the puzzle to put in there to sort of see the state of the economy. Look, it's getting better, but it didn't hit the levels that they thought, so it's not going as good as they thought it was. But at the same time, it's not like, oh my God, well, we really positioned hard based on the idea that the trade balance was going to be huge. Now it didn't meet expectation. Let's peel back those positions. And if you have a look at, so that's euro, just to point out how big this is. If you look at Aussie on lower time frames, so you can see the reaction's pretty much just nothing, up half a tick or something like this. So it's just there's no reaction from that data whatsoever. All right, cool. Back to what we were talking about. So yeah, so gold, it's in that sort of little period here. You want to see it break through this period, this move to the top side here. If it doesn't, this is starting to line up. I mean, with these lows, these highs, these highs. Look, short options certainly should we sort of come underneath the 80s, but I think that at the moment the fact that we're consolidating, pushing near the highs, you've got the weak US data, favours a break to the top side, retest of all-time highs, and I said this yesterday that I was looking for a move up to here to short to sort of come back down here. I did short through here and I shorted down here, but then because it actually held this area here, I was just like, it's a little bit sort of cautionary. And I said in yesterday's video that the risk now is further move to the top side. If this was going to come back down, you would have wanted it to go up and then bang straight back down. Sellers advancing, using that position and going, let's hammer down, 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 like we've seen with the US dollar. We haven't seen that. It's held. So that changes things. And now we sort of need to see what happens with this consolidation period. But as I've said a number of times now, it favors the idea of a break to the top side. Copper ripped yesterday, absolutely ripped. So, copper, I've called it the heartbreaker, and with good reason. I pulled my orders, so I actually didn't have orders here the last session or so, around the 61%. Now, I did sort of pick out this as well, that this was the first big move, came back, didn't quite make it to the 61%. Second move, pushed up, came back, didn't quite make it to the 61%. Had I actually sort of noticed this a little bit sooner, I probably could have changed my orders and pushed it back up over here. But whatever, regardless, no trade, it's always a little bit frustrating, but particularly when you see these big moves. That's another big move. Look, this move here outdid this large one we had last week. This was like 5%. This was when Trump was saying, hey, look, they were going to do more to bring back the copper or whatever in America. Look, that was 4.7% or whatever. This one, bang, nearly 6% off the lows there. What's that, sort of, 2,600 points. That is a big move. And as you can see, it was holding the line, holding the line, holding the line, and then bang, broke out. So no feel for me, no wins with that. But what I mean, didn't get caught on the wrong side of it. So that's one thing at least. Where it's at the moment, as I said, look, this is why I feel that a few of these things and it could do with a little bit of a cooling off. Should this sort of come back down here? Most likely, depends how. This is another thing I've noticed as well. Okay, so four thoughts at once there. Come back here, retest, and then move on. That's the general idea. So that's what we're thinking. Um, as to where it triggers from, so I'm just going to mark these out through here or through here. All right, so we can see how this sort of plays out. So I do think this is the idea that we sort of come back. Put this up. I do think we have a potential sort of pullback here to reload and then move forward. Okay, that's fine. Um, why I mark these ones in here is because I've noticed a couple of the times that, you know, where it actually pulls back to can signal a little bit of how strong and how keen the market is. I mean, this could just go boom and just keep going. That's fine. But should it only just very much hit the top wick and then sort of explode off, that's just like, okay, fine. Technically, previous high, retest on its way. Um, I think that's a lot more of a bullish case scenario than obviously even just a marginally lower pullback before going. We'll see how we go. I'm just going to follow up on this one and sort of see how it plays out. But that's something that I have noticed. Sometimes I've been waiting for these larger areas, a bit broader, to get a sort of fill, and it's just come to the very first little option, and then as soon as it hits the top of the wick, bang, it then explodes back off. So I'll just keep an eye on this one here. But I do think we got a test of 4.88, 4.9 sort of coming up soon. But with a little bit of a cooling. I really do feel that Asia is going to see a little bit of cooling. So it's through today. And we've got China right back down to the bottom side here. So look, it tried to sort of hold for a brief second, this little breakout point, didn't get that, and this is where we said it was going to come down. So again, this is the kind of bigger range that we put in. I put it in, I can't even remember, back over here or something, and I said, look, if it comes up here, these are the levels, this is where the sellers are most likely going to be. We've seen the sellers time and time again here, all through this period, and then again, pretty much, with a couple of points, push back in here again. So the idea with this is still that potentially, we want to see it sort of break down and come down to these levels over here. US dollar selling off, going to DXY to 101, Aussie pushing back up us 74. These are the kind of things you're going to see at the same time. They're not direct cause and effect with this chart and vice versa, but these will be the cross-chart confluences you will see as these happen. Where it is at the moment, falling resistance, retest the top side, it's got reason to sort of stop here. We're on a fairly strong sort of horizontal where it's tapped into a few times. I don't think it's about to go through here. I think, again, maybe a little bit of a pop-up, and then if we sort of pop up and then sell into it again, I think that'll be the time that we break through there. So I wouldn't be surprised if a little bit of a push up here, and then maybe we sort of start to come through here. Maybe NFP is going to be the one that actually drives these things through. As I said, weak economic data is kind of the norm, well, not the norm, but it's the kind of thing, the theme with US dollar at the moment. And if tariffs get abated, plus you have that weak US data, well, you play it out. What does it mean? It means that the sort of like the Fed's probably not going to be able to take such a strong, heavy-handed sort of position with holding rates. And if they're not going to do that, they're going to cut rates. Well, that's going to sort of weaken the US dollar. Whether it actually does when they actually cut, that's a different story. But if the theme coming into that is that of, rates cuts are coming, cuts are coming, cuts are coming, that's the time that we see things move, not the actual rate cut itself. The time while the market prices it in, that's the time to get positions and sort of really make the bank. But anyway, whatever. So the point being is we are sort of seeing continue to sell down here. I think this is very much the direction we are probably going to be going. Whether we go here sort of in this session or not, probably not. I would say maybe a little bit of fluffing around in the lows over here. There's no real sort of perfect little levels through here. I mean, you had a little bit of a range. Oops. Little bit of a range through here. Something to this effect. But as I said, I think sort of pretty much these two levels are going to be your resistance should it start to sort of get a little bit of a push up. All right, and I think that's it for the charts there. Have a quick look, gold-silver ratio. And this is the one that sort of got silver moving yesterday. So look, 3 attempts to come in here. Obviously reject, 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 and it is held. So it was really, actually did put in multiple year highs, but unable to get that follow through to get that move up towards the 95. So bang, back into the range. Doesn't mean it's out of the woods. As you can see, it is sort of leveling up each time. So really, this is the area you want to sort of see it move. Though, as the longer that we consolidate up towards this period over here, the shorter the move will be coming to come into this sort of rising midway support. Yeah, there's the alert back on that one there. So I think sort of still, underneath 87, that's fine, but you got to keep in mind you got this sort of medium term. Say medium term, this is going back to May last year, kind of medium-ish, longish term, sort of rising support coming through here. If this breaks, this is where we'll see metals just explode, I would say. I think silver's going very, very much higher once we sort of go through. There's a lot of chop through here, so you can carry these horizontals across, but I think this little medium term, little triangle will be the one that sort of determines the break. So the fact that it'll reject it from here, I could see this probably sort of continuing down here. This goes in line with metals probably having a little bit more of a higher push to go. A little bit of cooling first, but I do think it's going to go a little bit higher, and then sort of see what happens when it comes into contact with this sort of rising support through here. All right, cool. I think that's about it. Have a look over any more sort of news coming out today. No, pretty quiet through the rest of Asia. We do have ECB tonight, and they're expected to cut 25 base point, but it's been highly talked about, so you might get a knee-jerk reaction, but certainly, as I said, I showed it a second ago, where's the euro gone? Um, they don't seem to be caring, really. Look at that. You want a breakout, oof, that's the move there. So they don't really seem to be caring so much. I do actually just have a little bit of this underside of this rising previous sort of triangle, um, which could be a little bit of an upside target. What's the 61% for? No. Well, it's pushing right up to the 61% now as well of this whole sort of drop. So from there, yep, boom. So from the highs to the low there. So coming up into the 61% over this area. Again, this is why you think you might see a little bit of sort of balancing. This is just straight up. So say pull back, reload, and then on the way it goes. All right, that's it from me.